I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 160. It's a big week here at Alter Ego Comics, as well as around the world, because Free Comic Book Day is right around the corner. This is the week of Free Comic Book Day. You may not see this until after Free Comic Book Day, but we've got all of these great activities and things planned for Free Comic Book Day. But we also had to read this week's new comics so we could talk to you about what we really liked, what we thought was great.
Also because we like comic books.
Also because, yes, we like comics. First up for me, it should not be a surprise to anyone. My pick is Amazing Spider-Man #1. Written by Dan Slott, artwork by Humberto Ramos, and there are also several kind of short stories at the end that set up what's going to happen later on in Amazing Spider-Man. But the bulk of this issue, and it is a very bulky issue because it includes a free copy of Inhuman #1 at the back. The bulk of this issue is Peter Parker adjusting to being alive again because he wasn't so much alive before. If you haven't been reading Dan Slott's Superior Spider-Man, you missed out on some amazing stories starring Dr. Octopus as Peter Parker / the Superior Spider-Man. Doc Ock is no more. Peter has regained control of his body, his mind,
his life,
his everything, his life. I don't know if he's gained control of his life, and that's what we see in this issue, which is very interesting. Because for how many years? Was it 2 years? 3 years? How many years did Superior Spider-Man run?
The series ran for 1 year. It started.
Was it only 1 year? It went like 30 some odd issues.
It comes out 2 or 3 times a month. What do you want from me?
Okay, 1 year, really?
It started in Peter Parker died in December, not this past December, but the one before, and the book started in January.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway,
I ran 30 issues.
So Peter is having to deal with everything that Doc Ock did while he was Peter Parker, which includes having a new girlfriend, moving in together, totally dissing Mary Jane, angering many people in his life, including his Aunt May and Uncle Jay.
Blackmailing J. Jonah Jameson, turning the raft into his own island base.
Beating the crap out of the Black Cat and having her arrested. A whole bunch of stuff.
Founding his own company.
Yeah, he got his doctorate. He created his own company. And this was all while Doc Ock was Spider-Man. So Peter's like, hey, some of this isn't so bad. I forgot my... He's like, Dr. Parker, what? And he turns around in his office and there's a diploma. His doctorate degree, his doctoral degree is hanging there. So what happens next? You know, Peter is thrust into these weird situations. He doesn't even know Anna Maria, Doc Ock's girlfriend, or Superior Peter's girlfriend. It's going to be a fun ride, I think, and it may not end entirely well for Peter Parker, as is frequently the case. But at the back here, we get an Electro story, of course, because Electro is featured in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
And a story that happens to make him look a little more like he looks in Spider-Man 2.
But Doc Ock apparently, I don't remember this, and it probably happened, I just don't remember. He did something to mess with Electro's powers, so Electro is all bent out of shape, and is going to seek revenge on Peter somehow. As I mentioned earlier, the Black Cat, there's a section on her, and she is just, man, this is going to be horrible for Peter. Anyway, really great book. Lots of content. Really looking forward to where Dan Slott takes this next. He can keep writing Spider-Man for ever, as far as I'm concerned.
Did you notice the first thing?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even... Yeah. Well, did you notice what else happens?
Yeah.
Okay. So...
You should read it. Stuff happens.
We'll ignore the first thing that we pointed out here, but the second thing is that Peter may not have been the only one that was bitten by the radioactive spider that gave him his spider powers. Mm-hmm. So that is coming soon. And
that's not much of a spoiler because that's like page 2 of the book.
Yeah,
so.
And there have been press releases that Marvel sent out already. You cannot go wrong with this book.
Yes. Next up, we've got Star Wars Rebel Heist #1, written by Matt Kindt with art by Costello? Marco Costello. Or if you have the other cover of this, it just says Star Wars. The variant cover that's drawn by Matt Kindt doesn't actually say Rebel Heist anywhere on it.
Nice.
Yeah, handy. So this is a Matt Kindt penned story set. Actually, I'm not 100% sure where it's set. Chronologically, we get identifiers. I would say it's probably between Star Wars and Empire, but we don't get any actual hard identifiers to let us know that. And you've got a new Rebel agent coming into the fold. and basically it's all narrated from that character's point of view, and you get his opinions on Han Solo. And it's really interesting to see the way his opinion evolves as the story goes on. And this isn't this isn't Han Solo at his finest. Or maybe it is. We don't know yet. It's got a very much an Ocean's 11 feel, where there are things happening, and I think at the end it'll be revealed what was really going on, and then it'll all make more sense. But it was really cool, because he vacillates between, this hero worship of this man who flew against the Death Star and destroyed it, and just like thinking he's insane for some of the things he's trying to do. And it was just a love letter to the classic feel of Star Wars and the original cast, and especially in this issue, to Han Solo, to Harrison Ford. And just a great thing to read. And what I'd like to point out is Disney, Lucasfilm, has announced that nothing they've ever written meant anything. They've declared the entirety of the expanded universe, novels, books, comics, will be ignored and rebooted coming next year. My first thought on this was an immense amount of pain and anger, because every time the reboot happens, I have to learn all this new
Josh
stuff again.
burned all of his Star Wars novels and threw them off the shelves.
No! Dak! No! But it gives us two great opportunities. The first is, there was a big dead spot when they didn't make Star Wars stuff, leading up to when Dark Horse got the license in the mid-90s, and when Bantam started doing the novels with the Thrawn trilogy. Really, as a kid or as a teenager, I got to start from the beginning, and this is going to give that opportunity to a whole new generation of people to get in from the beginning of the continuity, not have to worry about 20 years of novels. But it also means that for the next 6-8 months, novel writers and comic writers can just burn the house down. Anything could happen in this book. You don't know, because it won't matter in a year. But if you're a Star Wars fan, the feel is really just what you're looking for, and I enjoyed it.
V-Wars, #1. This is by IDW Publishing. It is adapting the novel by Jonathan Mayberry, and he also is the writer on the comic. Artwork by Alan Robinson, and this surprised me. I really wasn't expecting a whole lot out of it. It seems like everybody has a vampire book these days, but this is a kind of a different take. Basically, there's a vampire virus, which is very similar to a zombie virus in Walking Dead. And there are some people that become infected and they are kind of normal. They're like normal vampires living with the virus, but then there are others that go crazy and act like traditional vampires and want to kill everybody.
Okay, I didn't interpret it that way. I interpreted it as basically everyone has the gene, it's junk DNA, and something activates it. But the difference between the people that are acting cool and being relatable and the people that are killing people is about people, not about monsters. It's just like there are people who are horrible and people who are not.
That's kind of what I said.
Oh, okay. We made it sound like it was an effect of the virus.
No. Well, no. It's there are good people and there are bad people, and there are good vampires and there are bad vampires, and there's a conflict within society about what do we do with the vampires, and there's a group that wants to coexist with them, and there's a group that doesn't. So it's very much a I don't know. It's I don't know if I can compare it to anything. It was interesting.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
There's an assassination that takes place in the first issue.
It's a lot like mutants and humans in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. You've got political machinations going on, as well as deep-seated emotional things, and it was good. Really solid first issue. The Zero issue, by the way, is available on Free Comic Book Day, so you should check that out for free, and then pick up issue #1. Cool. Also, a new #1 this week from Image and Joe's Comics. We've got Dream Police #1, written by J. Michael Straczynski, drawn by Sid Kotian. And this is the story of the Dream Police. The title really says it all. You've got a police force in some sort of ethereal dream realm that prevents nightmares, hunts them down, keeps things running smoothly, and it's really good. Straczynski did a great job of taking a premise that's fairly obvious. Once you have a world of dreams, you have to have somebody to police it, somebody to look after it, make things run right. But there are enough little hooks in here that make us see that what we're seeing isn't necessarily everything that's going on. The main character's partner changes 2 or 3 times and he doesn't seem to notice. The time of day shifts around. He doesn't seem to notice the passage of time. So it's neat to see, what happens when a nightmare breaks loose, or how nightmares are born, and where the bad stuff is going in the universe. But the true core of the story is trying to figure out what is going on with this guy. You know, is he immortal? Is he the only dream police, and all the rest is just a structure built around him? And it's just,
is he Neo?
It was great.
Is he in the Matrix?
It's in the Matrix. There's definitely some Matrix type elements going on here. But I really enjoyed it. It was much better than I expected, and it was coming from J. Michael Straczynski, so I had reasonably high expectations to start with.
Another new #1 this week is Southern Bastards from Image Comics. This is written by Jason Aaron with artwork by Jason Latour. And honestly, at this point, I'll read anything that Jason Aaron writes. He's had an excellent track record. Going back to his creator-owned book, Scalped, over at Vertigo, which I still have not read. I should probably go back and read that at some point. But his work on Thor,
God of Thunder. I
knew there was something that came after before the word Thor. Thor, God of Thunder, Wolverine and the X-Men. He's writing Original Sin for Marvel, and now he's got Southern Bastards, which is about an older guy. I'm guessing he's probably in his 60s. He goes back to his hometown to kind of take care of some family matters, and it's very much a good old boy, type of environment. I think he lived in Hazard County, where the Duke boys are from, and he's very much a Clint Eastwood type of character from Gran Torino, except so far we don't really have the character that he's trying to protect. We kind of sort of do, but it's just a lot of the stuff we talk about is fantasy. We talk about Dream Police and V-Wars and Star Wars and Spider-Man. Southern Bastards could happen.
So far there's nothing supernatural.
Yeah, in the first issue, it's very much a real-world story of a guy returning to his roots who quickly got away from his roots because of the way things were. And because he's a good man, he puts himself in the middle of this situation that may end badly for him. So it's only one issue so far, but I really enjoyed it. Nice break from a lot of the fantastical stuff that we read week in and week out.
Speaking of down-to-earth stories, The Flash, annual #3, with time travel and talking gorillas with mind control. And so this is the current wave of DC annuals. And this one is The Flash, written by Robert Venditti. Is that the new creative team, or is he just doing the annual?
Yes, this is the new creative
team. So this is the new team taking over. Co-written with Van Jensen, art by Ron Frenz and Brett Booth.
Those are both artists.
Yeah, I was going to say, there may have been a story break and I didn't catch it. Anyway, so Barry Allen is The Flash. True. He's been, because of Forever Evil, the whole universe has been jacked up in DC, and this is taking place after Forever Evil. Stuff is getting back to normal. He's coming back to work at the crime lab, and I'm trying to figure out how to structure this. Basically, we have the reveal of Wally West in the New 52. Still Iris West's nephew with some slight changes, but we also have this ongoing plot that Barry's uncovering that is basically, we see stories set in the present and in the far future. I think it's 25 or 30 years. It's not quite as far as Future's End, but it's getting there. And you see that things have gone horribly, horribly wrong. And so you've got Barry in the future, who's all blue, like you see there on the cover, trying to straighten things out and not succeeding, and deciding the only way to save his future, to save the world, to make the world right, is to go back in time and kill Barry Allen. And that's what it is. It's a great hook. It was really easy. I haven't been on Flash for the last 6 or 8 issues, so it was really easy for me to pick up and go, especially with the breaks following the stuff out of Forever Evil. It was interesting to see the new version of Wally around and being a little different than we expected. And we get to see a lot of great, Flash villains. And I love future stories where you see how things might go horribly, horribly wrong. And it was just a great read. It was good to have Flash back on my radar.
Cool. All right, lots of other stuff came out this week. Next week looks like it's going to be huge, by the way. Total side note. But in honor of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 hitting theaters this weekend, as well as Amazing Spider-Man issue #1.
It's a very Spider-Man week.
We're all about Spider-Man. So we're going to do our top 5 single-issue Spider-Man stories. Is that what
Top 5 Spider-Man issues. So we're not including long-staring storylines. But if there's one issue that matters that could be construed as part of a bigger storyline, then it's okay.
Okay. Ground
rules. We're sticking to 616, right?
Yes.
So no Ultimate Comics, because there are definitely a few in there that would make the list. We're going mainstream Marvel Universe, and just, I guess, since we're kicking off here, do we want to count 15? Do we want Amazing Fantasy 15 is a great issue. It's an amazing origin, but
I don't know. I mean, it is, but I guess in my mind, I look at stories or events that have had a long-lasting impact on Peter Parker, and that obviously does, but also from a reader standpoint, books that hold up well over time.
Okay.
And I don't know if Amazing Fantasy number 15, from a readability standpoint,
got it.
You know, we've seen the origin redone so many times, including
Let's say we get a recap version of it here,
an abbreviated version that says it happened 13 years ago.
Which would put it a year before Slott wrote the 12 years ago, and Surfer was when Galactus came. So we're getting kind of a timeline.
The Marvel Universe now started in what?
2011.
The year 2001?
I'm sorry, 2001.
Yes.
Math is hard.
So for me, Amazing Fantasy 15 is out. But, you know, I would go with, and I don't remember all these issue numbers off the top of my head.
Didn't. That's not the whole list. That was just the ones I was...
The ones you were going to talk about?
Well, no, that was just ones I wanted to have in case you picked ones or to talk about.
Yeah, I think that Amazing Spider-Man 121, 122, which is the death of Gwen Stacy, death of Green Goblin. Oh, spoiler warning if you're going to see the movie this weekend. Something bad might happen. I don't know. I have no inside information. But that has... obviously, the death of Gwen Stacy has remained canon, despite the fact that Straczynski brought her back in flashbacks and made her not good. We've had clones of Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy had a huge impact on Peter Parker's life. In fact, and so a lot of people, a lot of average moviegoers and comic readers may not even know who Gwen Stacy is at this point. We were watching the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie last weekend at my house, and my 12-year-old and my wife, neither one knew. They were like, "Where's Mary Jane?" Like, well, this is Gwen Stacy. It was his first girlfriend. I had to explain it.
Second girlfriend. He dated Betty before Gwen. He dated
Betty first, but his true love.
Oh, I'm not arguing that part.
So yeah, the death of Gwen, 122, 121, 122, is that it?
Yeah, that's 121, 122.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome, I can tell. So that's number one.
Number one, with a bullet. Number two, are we doing these in order, or are we just doing 5?
No, these are in no particular order.
Okay.
We're just doing 5, that's why I'm shouting out numbers. 2.
7, 26.
Time's up.
All right, then go on. No. I guess How Green Was My Goblin? The revelation that Norman was the Green Goblin.
Okay.
That's Amazing 39. The end of the issue. Well, no, I mean, it's a model that has not been improved upon with time. You know, his best friend's dad, this is someone he's worked with, you know, not worked with, but interacted with for, you know, a long period of time. The Goblin, his identity was a huge question at the time. You know, who is this new menace that Spidey's fighting, or Spidey's basically his nemesis? You know, Goblin is Spider-Man's greatest villain, almost inarguably. And the idea that it was someone so close to home, and that had reverberations for years in the Spider-Man universe. I mean, it affected Harry and all of the stuff that went after with the later Goblins. I mean, we just did Spider-Man, 700, but then 30 issues of Superior, you know, 40-some years later, and the Green Goblin is still the Green Goblin. He's still the most important villain, and the revelation of Norman is what's made him an enduring villain for Peter. So,
yeah.
There you go.
Oh, I'll go with... Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut. Let's go. Amazing Spider-Man 229 and 230, written by Roger Stern. Artwork by John Romita Jr. Some, in my opinion, great John Romita Jr. artwork. But this was Spidey going toe-to-toe with the Juggernaut for 2 issues. And it really showed us that Spider-Man is pretty powerful. You know, most of his villains, you know, he had the Shocker, he had Morbius, he had Green Goblin, Electro, you know, lots of Vulture. None of these people were exceptionally strong or physically imposing. You had
the Rhino,
but he was, the Rhino was more about the suit and less about the man. You know, the Juggernaut had the power of the gem. You know, the helmet helps, but But this showed Spider-Man going toe-to-toe with one of the biggest, baddest guys in the Marvel Universe at the time, physically, a physically imposing foe. There were others that Spider-Man took on, but you know, I don't think anyone had the power set of the Juggernaut. I mean, he fought the Hulk a couple times, but it showed us, you know, how strong Spidey is.
Okay. I'm going to cheat, which is usually what you do. So this is going to be a twofer about the Rhino. You don't like the Rhino? Come on, man.
It depends on what you talk about here.
Horns of the Rhino. Amazing Spider-Man number 42.
When did you read that?
When did I read that? Well, actually, that's a funny story. I read that yesterday.
Oh.
Because as I was racking my brain for like the best Spider-Man stories, the Spider-Man stories that affected me the most, I remembered one that was not from the comics. It was the cartoon.
The 60s cartoon?
No, the 90s cartoon.
Okay.
And I had to go back and find out where that was in the comics to match them up. And it's the cartoon in the 90s. That was one of the things Fox did really well, is taking the story from the comics, both for X-Men and Spider-Man, and adapting them almost perfectly. So this is Horns of the Rhino. This is the second time the Rhino shows up, or the second arc where the Rhino shows up. But the reason it's important is because this is also the issue where at the end, I mean, this is the first time we see John Jameson back from space. The Rhino's attacking him. He's got those weird superpowers he got from being on the moon before he was fully into Moonwolf. Manwolf. And this is also, at the end of the issue, is when Peter is finally greeted at the door by MJ. This is, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. That is an iconic moment in the history of Spider-Man. That one page alone is worth picking the issue, which is why I did it as an addendum to my other Rhino pick, which is a much more recent one, Amazing 617. This is during the Gauntlet with Joe Kelly, and it's only barely a Spider-Man story. This is the story of Alexis, the original Rhino. He's gotten out of the business. He's trying to run clean. He's in love with this waitress. And when you get out, they keep pulling you back in. And it's about Spider-Man seeing that someone is struggling, trying to do good, and seeing them fail and fall. And it's just incredibly poignant. Written by Joe Kelly, art by Max Furamara?
Max von Sydow.
Yes.
I know.
And it was just, that was of the modern stuff. That was of the, that was the Gauntlet. So that was before Brand New Day or after Brand New Day.
Right, that was before.
Yeah, and it was just...
No. It was after Brand New Day. I'm sorry.
After Brand New Day, right.
Yeah.
Before
Big Time.
Big Time. And that was just my favorite modern Spider-Man story.
Yeah, and I will accept that because that's what I was thinking of when you said what you were going to do.
Oh, okay.
That's a great Rhino story.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great story, period, of characters in the Spider-Man universe. Looking back on this may not be our finest top 5 list of all time, but I think we maybe needed to set some different ground rules and talk about the most iconic moments in Spider-Man, or the biggest moments in Spider-Man's life. In which case, the Juggernaut would not even make my list. So, I don't know what we're on. We're on like 4? No, 1. I did 1. You did 2, 3. So, this is 5. This is it, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You know that's your story.
It is.
Are we going for iconic?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really iconic about that issue.
Okay. All right.
We want to start. Do we want to start over?
No.
We can do our favorite Spider-Man stories.
All right. We'll do whatever you think the iconic one is, and then we'll do your favorite one as an addendum.
I don't just have one favorite.
They're all his favorites.
Spider-Man was my jam when I was growing up. The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 248, again written by Roger Stern. Artwork by Ron Frenz, who did Flash Annual number 3 this week. Right. So he's been in the biz for quite a long time. And this is just it's a great story. It's a great standalone that should be available as a Marvel dollar book that we can just give out to people. Yeah. It's so good. It's kind of like Spider-Man does the Make-A-Wish deal and finds this kid who's a huge fan of Spider-Man, and he gets to spend the day kind of with Spider-Man doing things. Mm-hmm. And it turns out the kid has cancer, and it's sad, it's fun, it's Roger Stern's Spider-Man is amazing. No pun intended. But I think Dan Slott is the new Roger Stern, as far as I'm concerned. Roger Stern had a really long run on Amazing Spider-Man and told some great stories, emotional stories, and I think Dan Slott has kind of inherited that mantle. But The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, it's a great one-off. It's very easy to find. It doesn't have much value as far as a back issue, but the content, it's kind of one of my favorite Fantastic Four story was published right around the same time, where there's a kid who's kind of meek and he's bullied at school, and he looks up to the Human Torch, and in an effort to be like the Human Torch, he lights himself on fire. He probably wasn't the smartest kid in school, but and then he survives initially, and Johnny Storm goes to visit him in the hospital, and the kid ends up dying, and Johnny Storm says, well, I can't be the Human Torch anymore, because of this. And it was just reading that as a teenager, and even reading it now as an adult, it's one of my favorite stories. Monetarily, it's not worth anything. You can find it in 50-cent boxes anytime you go to a convention, but it's just a really great story. And the same thing goes with the kid who collects Spider-Man.
Okay. Cool.
So, I don't know. I could talk about Spider-Man all day, because literally, I mean, that was...
The other one I thought we might, if we're going to talk about ones that are good but not important, relative, the Deaths of Gene DeWolf.
This is the best top 5 list ever.
Top
this
5.
Is what happens
These are the
when
top
we
5
don't
books
plan.
we care about.
It's what happens when we don't plan. When we have to reference numbers and things.
Death of Gene DeWolf, Spider-Man 110. Gene DeWolf gets killed. Peter finds out that she had a crush on him, and he kind of loses his crap going after the
Sin Eater.
Yes, who is also targeting Betty, right?
Yes.
That's
it's collected. You can pick it up and trade.
But my favorite part is Peter's got to the point where he wants to physically harm or kill the bad guy, and Matt Murdock, Daredevil's teaming up with him, and he's like, no, that's not justice, and they go to blows. They fight it out, and it's just great. I love it.
Yeah.
Peter David.
I could be wrong, but I think it might be Peter David's first work in comics. I recently read something like that.
It's possible.
Yeah, we could just go on and on. Peter David does this other story in Spectacular Spider-Man about a mutant, a kid who has mutant abilities, and S.H.I.E.L.D., I think, is going after him for some reason, and Spider-Man is trying to save the kid, and the kid ends up being gunned down by S.H.I.E.L.D., because they think he's a threat, and Spider-Man's like, no, it's another very emotional story written by Peter David. Yeah, really, I apologize. This is so, we're just stream of consciousness talking.
The punchline is, we can't pick 5 Spider-Man stories.
I can. I mean,
we love them all.
My bookshelf has plenty of Spider-Man stories. There was a recently released Roger Stern Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus, which I highly recommend. You could seek that out. I mean, he's the guy who gave us the Hobgoblin and the relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, going towards the altar. Just such good stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie this weekend. I don't really have...
By the time they see this, we'll have already seen the movie.
Yeah, we will.
It was good. Probably.
I don't really have expectations for it, other than I hope they don't muck it up by having so many villains in it. And I know that's a lot of people's concern, but... anyway, so what is your favorite Spider-Man story? Was it any of the 25 we talked about today? Let us know in the comments below. And we will be back next week. We'll recap our free comic book day. We might talk about Spider-Man. We might talk about the cosmos. I don't know. We can talk about anything.
We're going to have, what's his name?
Yeah, that guy.
I'm sure we can get him. Tyson?
Dyson?
Dyson.
He created the Dyson Sphere?
I think that was him, yeah.
I don't know. The Tyson, the chicken guy? Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.